Hi guys, what's up? It's Mansi. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will be telling you all about MBBS abroad. The decision to move outside of the country is in any case not an easy one, and you have to consider a lot of things. For other courses, I would say this decision is comparatively a little bit easier because the career path is tried and tested and the options are a lot more. Safe to say you have to know what you're getting yourself into, and mostly this is the thing that students lack on. You always think short term when it comes to going abroad. Worry not, because this video is particularly for those students who want to go outside and they have to know a lot of things beforehand, and this video will help you in that. First thing I wanted to address is all the countries where you can actually go for MBBS. So usually people think that these include Russia, Ukraine, China, and then some other Eastern European countries and some Asian countries. Other countries like US, UK, Australia, no one really considers that because cost becomes a very limiting factor in that. The second important thing is the eligibility criteria. Like I said, the eligibility criteria varies from country to country. I did divide them into two major categories, but then again, there are some other things to consider, and only one or two things will differ from country to country. The basic criteria remains the same. That usually involves the 12th passing certificate with your basic science subjects that you need to have, and then you also need your NEET UG scorecard, which also becomes an important aspect. So NEET UG, you cannot escape that. You have to give NEET UG. NMC approval is the most important aspect for any college, and you have to check that. So whatever college you choose, make sure that it is MCI approved. This is the list of basic things that you would need for your eligibility, and then there are some other things as well. For example, if you go for US, UK, and for Canada, you would need to appear for their own country's exam. For that, you need to start preparing before 12th. So you need to make a decision sooner. Now let's talk about FMGE. FMGE is the exam that everyone who has done their MBBS abroad has to give. Right now, the current scenario is that soon it's going to be changed, and next exam is going to come into picture, which will obviously change a lot of things. There will be a one single exam to be given for all the students. So right now FMGE is particularly for people who have done their MBBS abroad. So this exam is needed to get your license. The pattern of the exam is much like NEET PG, I would say, but the questions I would say are more preliminary and more basic. They just want to know that you have the basic knowledge and the basic training. So the exam itself is divided into 3 sections. The exam is conducted twice in a year and you can appear for it. How to prepare for FMGE? Usually students start preparing when they are in their medical college itself. I think it's very important to have your own sources, your own resources for preparation, and recently I found a really great tool for FMGE preparation, which is doctutorials. I think it's a very underrated tool and it helps leaps and bounds, and I've heard from a lot of people that it helped them in their preparation. So I thought I would mention it for anyone who is looking for a good source. A make it or break it point before choosing any resource for FMGE, I would say, is the fact that it should be affordable and it should be not that long term, because I think this is the exam that you need to give to pass, and this is a preliminary thing that you need to go for. With doctutorials, you can be sure that FMGE focused material and videos and question bank is provided to you. Unlike all other platforms that you go for, they are very heavy on the pocket and usually it requires a longer time of commitment. So you need to take a plan that is 1 year long maybe. A friend of mine recently also told me that they have a custom plan as well. So a custom plan is usually a 6-month based plan that they have, and you can choose your own subjects for your preparation. You can choose the 3 subjects of your own choice. Once you choose those 3 subjects of your choice, you will get all the course material related to it, and I think this is a very good thing for anyone who's preparing for FMGE when they are in medical college and when they're studying those subjects themselves. So as an additional tool of preparation, plus to get a question bank that is completely focused on FMGE, I think that is something that is very rare and unique to students who are going for MBBS abroad. So don't miss out the opportunity of getting this custom modules for yourself. And if you go for doctutorials plan, it will only cost you this much, which I was very shocked to hear. I started using the questions a little and they are so focused clinically and they're so good in terms of getting the basic concepts right. So for FMGE, I can actually vouch for the fact that they would have a very concentrated material. Once you pass the exam, you will get your provisional registration, which is not permanent. Provisional is the temporary registration which you get. After this, you start your internship. After your internship, you get a permanent registration. So this is the whole process, how the FMGE plays a role in getting your medical license in India. A lot of times you take advice from consulting firms, and sometimes they can be misleading in terms of getting money and taking undue advantage of parents and students in a sense. In addition to tuition fees, the accommodation fees, which is additional additional, then the cost of visa applications, and then there's a cost of actually going there and then living there on a monthly basis. That would also be something that can be heavy on the pocket, and sometimes students don't realize this before going. Whenever you consider the college, what would be the total cost, including the cost of living, and then consider whether in India, if you go for a private college, whether it would cost you around that or whether there would be a drastic difference. If there's a drastic difference, then do consider going outside, because that would be most effective for your situation. One thing that helps is to always take some advice from someone who has already gone there. Somehow you can find it, whether it's online, whether it's from a friend of a friend of a friend. So do make sure that you one-on-one have your doubts cleared instead of only relying on, I would say, a consulting firm. For now, next exam is still on paper, and there is no sure way of knowing how the exam will be conducted, what will be the whole eligibility criteria for it, how the exam is going to be conducted. Coming back to all the other points that you have to consider before going abroad for MBBS, language is another thing, and usually it's a more commonly known one. Usually people do know that language is going to be a problem for them, and if you're not that efficient in English, again it becomes a problem for you to settle down there. But with time it gets easier and easier, I would say. But interacting with the patient is something of a limiting thing, and that can be actually a hindrance in your clinical training. That brings me to another problem. Another problem that you need to consider is the fact that your clinical training might be limited to a lot of things that are not that clinically possible outside India. For example, a lot of the clinical training in India revolves around infectious diseases, a lot of diseases that are prevalent in our country but not in other countries. But usually the MCI approved colleges in other countries do have a sort of curriculum that is very, very accustomed to the Indian scenario. But again, when you see the hospital clinical cases, the clinical part of it, they cannot make all of the Indian patients be the same exact situation as you see in our country. Going for MBBS abroad, the one thing that falls in your advantage is going to be appearing for exams for other countries when you go for PG exams for other countries. For example, if you want to go for PLAB or USMLE or something, then you would be more comfortable with the whole aspect of appearing for those exams, because you already have the experience of staying outside the country for so long. So it becomes easier to appear for the exam. But again, the clinical aspect of it, I would say, still becomes a little bit limiting, because the clinical scenario is going to be different. The salary aspect after going for MBBS abroad is something not that of an important thing, since it's usually the same. So if you go for MBBS abroad and then you're coming back to the country to practice, nothing will be different. You will be paid about the same thing as long as you manage to get a job anywhere. So in private sector, the jobs will vary. It would depend on the private hospital how much they're willing to pay their residents. Usually people think that if they go abroad for MBBS, they will have a very secure way of getting a job and settling there as well. I think that's something of a misguided approach, because usually study visa and work permit is something very different. So getting a work permit in the country that you have studied is not the same, and it's not as easy as it looks. So you have to come back to your country in any case, because study visa is only for the purpose of getting you your degree. Once you get your degree, they expect you to come back to your country. So don't think that when you go outside you will be going there and living there indefinitely and this is your one ticket pass. You will have to file for all the formalities needed to be working there in their own country, getting a license to practice in that country. All of those things will be a lot different than what you consider as only getting MBBS there. Once you know these things, once you realize these things and you are clear in your concepts, and then you're going for MBBS abroad and you have in your mind the clear picture of what your future looks like, it's a very wise decision to make. I would not discourage anyone from going abroad for MBBS. I would say another positive point about it is the fact that next exam is going to make everyone fall under the same curtain of being medical graduates, having to give an exam to get the license to practice in India. So this is something of a very generalized thing that is coming our way. And again, a positive point is obviously the fact that all the people who go abroad for MBBS get a very, very good exposure, and they get more confident, and they also get an advantage when they are preparing for other countries' exams for PG. The misconceptions and the myths and this prejudice that people tend to have for people who have done their MBBS from private or from abroad, I think those sort of things are so age-old concepts of thinking, and usually I would say that this just reflects the person's own insecurities. And when you see an insecure person, they would go out of their way to make other people feel beneath them, and that is not something I would say good for anyone, even for the person who's demeaning the other person. So on that note, I hope that this video helped you, and it will help you, or if you are already in 11th or 12th and you're making the decision. If you have any doubt, you can comment below. I will make sure to reply, and I will help you in any way that I can. And I will see you guys very soon. Bye bye, take care.